Hello YouTube, back and again with another video. This time I'm finally going to be going to do a Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile online. Since I normally don't, sometimes I do, but I'm going to be showcasing my Albaz Strike deck that I'm using in real life. I'd rather have it on the simulator on Dueling Book because it'd be a lot easier to showcase all the cards to you guys. You have a better display, it's a lot easier, I don't have to explain too much. And then maybe when the time passes by, the video will be convenient and it won't take too long. So again, let's continue forward. Starting off, we're playing the 1 Albion, the Shotted Dragon. You play it as a 1-of because it lets you draw 1. It has a hard once per turn, and if you draw too many to it, you don't want to draw too many into this card because it's a high level monster. And you can send one of your Fallen of Albaz or Burn Spell Trap cards from your deck or hand to graveyard is very unique and very helpful because it can actually help you trigger their effects and be able to activate their graveyard abilities from the graveyard, which they possibly might have access to. So I'm not going to explain too much of that, traps. I'm pretty sure we're playing 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Effect Veiler, and some people prefer to play 2 Fallen Albaz. I prefer to play 3, since he's one of your stronger normal summons and we're not playing too many normal summons. This is mainly a hand trap deck because I feel like it helps utilize the deck a lot better. People are probably suggesting I should play Despia, but the issue is I'm not too much of a fan of Despia, and I feel like it limits you from playing your Albaz fusion monsters, and this is my personal preference. So I pretty much found ways I can make the deck better without having to play Despia, and hopefully in the future I think once certain cards become more accessible, I can definitely try to make more improvements to this deck without having to rely on Despia, because I feel, yeah, Despia has its own thing. It can be very strong. It can help, has coverage against a lot of the meta, but at the same time, this deck has has the same thing. But if you play Despias along with Fallen Albaz, I feel like it just makes the deck even more tighter. And the card choices, like, you also want to be able to utilize more hand traps, powerful fusions, spell cards, and again, it's for you guys to decide. But either way, he's basically the super poly of the deck. The thing is, you have to fuse something including this card. So the materials definitely have to be correct. You can't just simply summon any fusion monster. It has to have like anything that's either has at least dark attribute, or either 2 effect monsters, 2 different types or the same type, whatever. Anything that applies to Fallen Albaz, whether it's its name or typing or effect. And that pretty much explains it all, so I already said enough for this card. So let's go into Nail Shaddoll Ariel. We're also playing the Shaddoll Fusion package. This card's one of the, you normally don't use their flip effects. It's mainly to use their card effects when sent to the graveyard. Very powerful effect, allowing you to target up to 3 cards in the graveyard and banishing them, which I think is very important because, especially if you're going against DPE, you can immediately get rid of it if they after they use the effect to pop a card, and it'll always come in hand regardless. Our other hand trap that we're maxing on is 3 Nibiru. You can also decide to play this on the side, but I forgot to mention I'm not going to be including the side deck because I want to make this more convenient for guys. The side deck is optimal to you guys. For anyone, it's all up to like how you decide to play against the meta. And again, I feel like this card is the best for playing against the meta, simply because he is not only a branded fusion target, he's also a Shaddoll fusion target. And not only that, the majority decks love to spam monsters. You'll see it from experience. Like, there are decks out there that want to summon more than 5 times. They want to go into their Omni Negate, so this is where this card will always come in handy. Even though you might break it late game, it's all you want to see it early game. And for obvious targets of Shaddoll Fusion, Beast for the draw 1, Dragon to pop a set card that's in the spell trap card zone, and we're going straight to the Albaz support, as well as maxing out on 3 Spriggan's Kit, A very powerful card. Allows you to special summon yourself on top of allowing you to search any of your the amazing fact the amazing part about this card is that you can search any of your brand spell trap cards anywhere. I'm not even kidding. Whether it's banished in the deck or in your graveyard, but the cost is you have to place one card from your hand on the bottom of the deck. That considering you still have to pay the cost, and then on top of being able to special summon it, that is 100% worth it. Because so even if your opponent manages to get rid of it, whether it's sent it to the grave or banish it, you get the card regardless with its kit. It's always something you have to consider playing 3 of. A card that you don't want to play 3 of that's part of the Albaz support. 2 Tri-Brigade Mercarrier. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's another powerful card. So if your opponent happens to manages to activate a monster effect while you control a fusion monster that mentions Albaz as a fusion material, it has a quick effect, allow you to send this card from your hand or like a face up the field to negate the effect. So what's crazy about the fact they can negate the monster effect anywhere, whether they're activating a monster effect from their deck, hand, field, or graveyard, or banish zone. Mirror Carrier is always there to negate and stop the effect. And we're also playing one Dark Magician because we easily have access to Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. And going straight to spell, Branded Fusion, basically another Shaddoll Fusion, but it limits you from special summoning, and then you can the only monsters you can special from the extra deck are only fusion monsters, which is really worth it because either way you're sending 2 monsters from your deck. And although you can't special summon any other monsters from the extra deck except fusion monsters, that's why we're mainly just playing fusion because of this card. Because I don't see the point of having, because this card is also the main key, but like you can't really go into Predator Plant Verte after this because it kind of takes away the opportunity. Yeah, maybe you can go into Verte Anaconda next turn, but I feel it's not worth the wait because of how fast Yu-Gi-Oh is right now. So we're playing one Branded Red, which I managed to pull from a Dex Destiny pack. I think this card is also underrated. You just play as a 1-of, allowing you to retrieve your fallen Albaz from your grave to your hand, and immediately being able to fusion summon a level 8 higher fusion monster by banishing the fusion materials listed, not on top of it being a quick play, which I feel is necessary because you want to go into as many fusion summons as much as possible so you can end your opponent. Another fusion card that helps us end our opponent is Branded White, which pretty much does the same thing but a lot slower. Give me one. Oops, stupid. Yeah, but I think you have to, in order to fusion something, you have to at least use one of your dragon monsters as fusion material. But if you're using Fallen Albaz, you can banish monsters from your graveyard as well, including hand or field, which will be very useful if you're in a sticky situation. So being able to make a comeback against your opponent is always necessary. A card that will help you make a comeback in your Yu-Gi-Oh! When in the middle of a duel is Branded Lost. So which is great because they cannot activate anything in response to your fusion summons. Your opponent cannot activate cards when a monster is fusion summoned. And if you fusion summon a fusion monster, you can add one Fountain Albaz or one Albaz support card that mentions it from your deck to your hand. And eventually I was gonna say I'm maxing out on 3 Forbidden Droplet, but in the future when I have the money or when I have the time, I'll probably I won't replace these, but I'll put these cards in the side and replace them for the DPE engine. For you guys should know what I'm talking about. Destiny Hero Fusion monsters for Destiny Hero, the Destiny Hero fusion materials to go into DPE, Destiny Hero, Destiny Destroyer, Phoenix, Enforcer, wherever you prefer to call it for short. But again, this card still is a lot stronger in the main deck. You could choose to play Dark Ruler No More. You could just play Dark Ruler No. You can max on Dark Ruler No More and Forbidden Droplet, but regardless, I want to be able to do damage as much as possible. Dark Ruler No More is a great card, but preventing yourself from like actually dealing damage to your opponent and actually putting effort into like destroying your opponent in that same turn and ending them can be an issue because they'll most likely try to make a comeback and finish you off, especially if they decide to retaliate. And for our final fusion spell card, we're playing Shaddoll Fusion. Basically similar to Branded Fusion, but only if your monster happens to control an extra deck monster on the field. And going to our traps, Brand Retribution to return one of your fusion monsters, like one fusion monster that you control, or if you have two in your graveyard that mention found Albaz, you can shuffle those into the extra deck, negate the activation, destroy that card. I personally want to play one brand sword just in case, because this deck, like I said, is to mainly kill your opponent and finish them off. So playing this card as a one can always be handy. Although you have to banish your brand spell trap cards from your grave, this card will always become useful regardless, and it has a graveyard effect, just like Retribution, because Retribution allows you to retrieve one of your banded spell trap cards from your grave to your hand, while Brand Sword allows you to try to retrieve one of your banished found Albaz or your Albaz support monsters from your banish zone to your hand. And for our last trap, which is our hand trap, 3 infinite permanents will come in clutch, will also help you against Verte or any Omni negate. And it always comes in handy because sometimes with infinite permanents, you can find ways to be able to eventually combo, or you don't even entirely combo this. Those will help you manage to be able to use Fallen Albaz's effect a lot easier if they have cards that can negate. So it's also very important, because if you want to be able to use Albaz's effect successfully, you want to be sure to able to prevent your opponent from negating your effects. And that's why impermanence, droplet, these cards will always become useful, and then you will be able to manage to succeed in using his effect. And then not only being able to get rid of your opponent's monster, but be able to fusion some to a stronger monster as well. And then we're going straight to the extra deck. We have Albion, the Brand Dragon, which you gotta play 2 of, and then which will also be mentioning the other dragon. This allows you to fusion a level 8 or lower fusion monster by banishing fusion materials from your grave, from your hand, field, or graveyard, and then during the end phase, if this card is sent to the graveyard this turn, you can add to your hand or set one brand spell trap card directly from your deck, which just very strong, being able to grab consistency and be able to go into an extra fusion summon. This card's not that important, although yes, you only play as a one of. It still has a very useful effect, not being able to be destroyed by battle, and then being able to protect your other monsters from being targeted by card effects, and then during the end phase allowing you to retrieve Fallen Albaz or Mercurier from your deck, whether you decide you want to special summon it or add it to your hand. Similar effects to the majority of the Fallen Albaz fusion monsters which I'll be showing. We're going to be playing El Shaddoll Construct and Winda, since I feel these cards aren't very necessary since you're playing Shaddoll Fusion. Winda being able to limit your special summons, and Construct being able to send a Shaddoll monster or Shaddoll card from the deck to the grave, and being able to, on top of being a powerhouse, and just automatically being able to destroy any monster that battles that was special summoned. And the other Albaz fusion monster I was talking about that's similar to Albion, we're going to be going to Lebellion. We're going to be going to Lebellion if it's your fusion summon, but this time you have to discard a card, but you can fusion summon a level 8 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck by shuffling fusion material monsters to your deck that are either from your field, graveyard, or banish zone. Although I think what's similar is that they can't attack when you special summon using this effect. But this effect is very powerful, because that means you can reuse the fusion material monsters that were used for the fusion summon, and if they happen to be hand traps, or if they happen to be cards that that can be used for a certain fusion monster that is already in your graveyard, and you match shuffle that card again. If you match shuffle that card into your extra, then you can fusion summon a second time, if you guys know what I'm talking about. But again, mandatory to play this card too, as well as I was hoping to play this at 2, but then I feel like 3 is necessary because I don't have the right necessary like pieces to go into DPE, so I'm trying to wait on that. If I do have once I do have the space, once I do have the once I obtain the actual cards, once I have access to them, eventually this card will go down to 2, but I still feel 3 is very powerful because even considering we're playing 3 Fallen Albaz, this card is absolutely amazing. Like I'm gonna explain here. It's pretty very simple effect. I'm pretty sure once you understand reading Albaz's effect, you notice that he confuse when he uses when using Albaz's effect, you can fusion summon regardless. Crazy part is you can fusion summon using your opponent's fusion, synchro, exceed, or link monster, and you get a 3k monster, but you can only control one of him. And he has an amazing quick effect, allowing you to send one fusion monster from your extra deck to the grave that mentions found Albaz as material, banish one monster field, non-targeting, but although it cannot be used on the next turn, still very useful. And then it has another a powerful disruptive effect. Although it only activates during your opponent's end phase. If it leaves the field by an opponent's card, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls during their end phase. Even though destroying is not that strong, and then though it's very slow, it's the fact that you can manage to get rid of 3 of your opponent's monsters, which makes this card very scary and worth playing. Even maxing out on this card is just, you'll never go wrong with this, trust me. So even at 3 it's always best, because if you don't have like I said, if you don't have the main key components of the cards that you're playing to go into other fusion monsters, then better just replace the other cards that you have access to and just play 3 of this card, because like I said, this card is always there to support you and be able to manage to win you a game. And especially if you're on the losing end, you'll most likely be in the winning position after. And then next fusion monster, Predator Draco Stapelia, another Fallen Albaz target, as well as, like I said, these 5 right here: Albion, Brigand, Lubellion, Mirror Jade, Stapelia. Pretty much you can use as a way to is an excuse to activate Fallen Albaz effect. Basically, another super poly target, however you prefer to address it. And it just comes in handy, because especially if you have a Fallen Albaz, you can always match someone's card if they have a fusion monster, regardless. So again, let's go straight to the fact. It has a quick effect, placing a predator counter on one of your opponent's monsters, which you can choose as a quick effect. And although it sucks that it's target, but so this effect may not matter, but the last part does. So if they have a predator counter, you can negate the activated monster effects, the activated effects of your opponent's monsters that have predator counter. So basically, while this card is on the field, they cannot activate that effect regardless, even if it's a hard one, even if it's more than once per turn, even if you can activate more than once per turn, effect is negated regardless. It means they can't activate it. Even if they have multiple effects, that means all their effects can't be used while this card is out. And you also have Red Eye's Dark Dragoon, which I said easily accessible, which you can fusion summon with your Lubellion, the Searing Dragon, or Albion, whatever you want to prefer to fusion summon with. We know how the card works. Even though it may seem recent, this card's been out for a year now, so you should be aware about its effects. It's still insane, basically better than DPE in my opinion, if you ask me. So cannot be destroyed by card effects, can't be targeted by card effects, and then is an OTK killer, trust me. So depending on the number of normal monsters used for fusion summon, you can destroy one of your opponent's monsters and they take damage equal to that monster's original attack. And you can use this effect multiple times depending on the number of more normal monsters used to fusion summon it. And if your opponent were to activate a card effect, you can discard one card, the effect is negated, activate on top of that, it gains 1,000. So it just keeps growing stronger every time and becoming a massive nightmare. Even probably far worse than DP, because DP can't hit this card. So probably that's their only way to defeat DP is with this guy. So although DP is annoying as how Dark Dragoons can manage to survive. So, and going to our other fusions, this card's pretty boring. I personally don't want to read that much, but whereas I just want to be able to give you info on this card. During your main phase, you can move this card you control to none of your main or monster zones, destroy all cards in this card's column, whatever. Similar effect, last effect. If it's sent to the graveyard this turn, you can add a special summon one Spriggans, like the kit we're talking about, file an Albaz from your deck. Whether you decide to put it on your field, it's all up to you or hand. And then our final two fusion monsters, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. Obviously, the card you obviously have to play in your extra deck when you're using as a super like when you're using Fallen Albaz or Super Poly, becomes a ferocious monster when fusion summoned, and then even if it leaves the field or if it's destroyed in battle, card effect destroys all special monsters your opponent controls. So two insane powerful effects. You can't go wrong with this card, and it can manage to devastate your opponent even more if you manage to attack over one of their nuisance monsters that they call their ace that you manage to get rid of. That all of a sudden they're out in the bloom, realizing they can still go into other stronger monsters, but if they manage to take care of this card, you can take care of them in return. So final fusion monster we're gonna summon is Titaniclad, the Ash Dragon. Normally you would play this in Dogmatica simply because it's searchability. You don't really even go into Dogmatica. Same thing. It's one of those effects where and for the it only if after the the only thing good about this monster is that it gains attack equal to the combined original levels of the monster used for its fusion summon. But some people will say regardless, but the best part is, like, I haven't really gotten into it yet, is when it's fusion summoned, it is unaffected by the activated effects of any monster special summon from the extra deck, because usually the extra deck is where it's going to hit you the most, because those tend to be their boss monsters, cards, like I said, that you have access to, and the people that simply duelists that rely on these monsters, that they expect extra deck monsters to always do the bidding for them. Like I said, you need to have an extra deck regardless, but it all depends on the deck. But like with the extra deck, the duelist, the opponent realizes that those are the type of monsters. Those are the best options to help them gain their win and help them with the ratios and be able to help turn around duels. And again, if you want to give your thoughts on this deck profile, you can always be sure to be willing to share comments down below. But I personally, again, I said this before, I'm not a Despia fan. I maybe have to adjust to understand it, but I just feel like it just doesn't feel like Albaz. I am a fan of Albaz, but I feel like Despia kind of overshadows Albaz. That's the main reason why I refuse to play Despia. For some players, maybe it's worth it because it helps them against the meta, but again, it's all up to personal preference. If you guys like the deck profile, be sure to share your thoughts on my video, and I'm gonna let you know that hope you guys expect for more upcoming content later in the future. Be sure to check your notifications, comment, like, subscribe. Again, thank you.